Good evening, I'm Genevieve Wu. Welcome to Singapore Tonight. It's a four-way contest for the single-member constituency of Punggol East. Candidates of the People's Action Party, Workers' Party, Singapore Democratic Alliance and Reform Party are competing for the seat, which was vacated last month by former MP Michael Palmer. This will be Singapore's second by-election since the 2011 general election.
Ko Po Kun of the People's Action Party. Kenneth Andrew Jeyaretnam of the Reform Party. Lim Bak Chuan Desmond of the Singapore Democratic Alliance. And Lee Lian of the Workers' Party.
This is the longest list of contenders for a parliamentary seat since 1997. 4 candidates will be campaigning hard over the next 9 days to capture votes from some 31,600 residents of Punggol East. And on January 26th, these residents will go to the polls to pick one of 4 to represent them in Parliament. The incumbent party PAP has sent in a fresh face, colorectal surgeon Dr. Ko Po Kun. The 40-year-old, who's dubbed himself the son of Punggol, has already outlined areas of concern he plans to focus on. And despite being flanked by party leaders at the nomination centre, Dr. Ko says he's his own man and will run his own campaign.
My supporters, voters of Punggol East, let us work together to make a better Punggol East.
Many believe Dr. Ko's biggest opponent will be the Workers' Party's Lee Lian. She is no stranger to residents in Punggol East, having contested there in the 2011 general election. Then she was also former MP Michael Palmer's closest contender and garnered 41% of valid votes.
I will serve you wholeheartedly. And I will continue and constantly stand up for your rights. On 26th of January, vote for the Workers' Party and send me into Parliament.
Also back to make another bid for the Punggol East seat, SDA Secretary-General Desmond Lim. He too contested in this constituency at the 2011 general election, but lost his election deposit when he garnered just 4.5% of valid votes. Undeterred, Mr. Lim says he's determined to serve the residents, having been active in the area since 2005.
Dearest residents of Punggol East, Desmond Lim is back, dedicated and determined to serve you and your family in Punggol East.
Rounding up the 4 candidates is Reform Party Chief Kenneth Jeyaretnam. This is the second electoral fight for the son of former Workers' Party Chief J.B. Jeyaretnam. He contested as part of a team in West Coast GRC in 2011.
This election, we are determined to bring a real choice to the voters of Punggol East. This is your chance to decide how you want to be represented.
Earlier at the nomination centre, familiar election faces in the form of retired acupuncturist Zheng Guoyuan and private tutor Ui Bun Yu showed up, but both left without filing their election papers.
Our editor Imad Assad was at the nomination centre this morning and she joins us now. We also have in studio Assistant Professor Eugene Tan from the Singapore Management University School of Law for an in-depth look into the issues. So after days of twists and turns, it's boiled down now to a 4-cornered fight. What did the parties have to say about this?
Well, Jen, both the Deputy Prime Minister Teo Chee Hean and PAP candidate Ko Po Kun, they've both said that it's going to be a tough fight for the People's Action Party. Reform's Party's Kenneth Jeyaretnam said that it's actually a good thing for voters to have more choices. And as for the Workers' Party, they're just saying that they want to just focus on their campaign and they don't want to be sidetracked by whatever the other opposition parties are doing. Now, as for the Singapore Democratic Alliance's Desmond Lim, he's banking on the fact that he's been in the ward since 2005. So he's saying that, look, residents are familiar with me, I'm committed, and that's why they should vote for me. But, you know, Eugene, this is the first 4-way fight since 1997. What does it say about the state of play in terms of politics in Singapore?
I think it reflects a growing political consciousness. The political parties are obviously getting a sense that voters are prepared to consider alternatives. But I wouldn't say that we're seeing a flourishing political scene. I think that's probably asking for too much. But certainly, I think we are moving in that direction, and I think that the voters are also showing that that they are more conscious about what is happening around them. And they want to see what the parties have to offer.
So is this a good thing for voters, good bad thing for the political parties as well?
Well, I think it's certainly more competition would certainly raise the quality expected of political parties and politicians. But I think at the same time, it also requires the Singaporean electorate to be more politically conscious, to be more politically mature, right? Because I think you need a combination of both, right? You can't have a vibrant scene where the voters are not informed enough or the parties do not meet the expectations of the people. So I think it does augur well for Singaporean politics.
Let's talk a bit about the strategy. Now, the Workers' Party has positioned this by-election to be a mini-referendum of the PAP's performance since the last general election. Now, does this put the ruling party on the defensive?
Not really, Jen, because, typically the PAP being the ruling party has always been subjected to the consideration that every general election or even by-election, amounts to a sort of referendum on the PAP. But certainly, you can be sure that the opposition parties will want to remind voters, what has been the impact since May 2011, with a heightened opposition presence in Parliament. So that's something that they want to press the voters, with regards to the PAP. But I would say that this is also a referendum for the opposition parties as well. I mean, there are concerns about whether, for example, the Workers' Party has performed to par, since they have now the largest opposition presence in Parliament. And of course, the question of whether the Reform Party and Singapore Democratic Alliance, how viable are they? Are they able, to show that they are relevant in Singapore's
So that
political
could work
scene?
out for the other opposition parties then, if you see it that way, that it's also a referendum for how the WP has performed in Parliament.
Yes, certainly. I think that there will be the attempt, to say that, do we want more of the same voices, or do we want,
other types of alternatives?
Other types of voices.
Is it a foregone conclusion that a multi-cornered fight is a bad thing?
No, not necessarily. I think, first, there's a question of choice, and so parties will really have to differentiate themselves. But I think the Singaporean voter is discerning. I think we will expect, the race to be, if it hasn't already, to be whittled down to a two-horse race, right? Voters, especially those who want to support the opposition, are very clear that they shouldn't split their votes.
Okay, we'll take it from here for now. We'll come back after the break. Join me after the break, and we have more on the four parties' campaigning strategy. And welcome back to our coverage of the Punggol East by-election. Imelda, now I understand campaigning has kicked off straight after the nomination process.
Well, that's right. The People's Action Party, Koh Poh Koon, he says that it's going to be a tough fight to retain the seat facing the three opposition parties. But he also added that he's ready to try to win over residents. Let's take a look at this package.
Over 500 PAP activists occupied half the field at the nomination centre to support Dr. Koh. But once the nomination process was over, the supporters fanned out as the PAP campaign machinery kicks into high gear.
The nomination centre is empty right now because all the efforts are being channeled towards the residents living in blocks like these in Punggol East. Dr. Koh says that he is going to be speaking to residents, trying to understand their needs and to come up with solutions to their problems. Dr. Koh admitted that this is going to be a tough and a close fight, but he's ready for the challenge.
Over the next week or two, as we visit the blocks, there will be opportunities to interact. And I think that will be a good time for them to know me better and for me to know them better as well. Reaching out to voters, the strategy is always the same. Listen more, empathize more, and also interact more.
Backing Dr. Koh is seasoned politician Deputy Prime Minister Teo Chee Hean, who has been re-elected to Parliament 4 times in the neighbouring Pasir Ris Punggol GRC. Mr. Teo himself was elected as an MP in the Marine Parade by-election in 1992.
Over the next few days, he will go out and try and meet many more residents, reach out to as many as he can. I think when they meet him, they will find that he's a down-to-earth, sincere person, works hard, and wants to work together with them to make their lives better, to make Punggol East better.
Mr. Teo urged residents to carefully consider whom they think would best represent them in Parliament.
What about the candidates from the opposition parties? What are they campaigning on?
Well, Workers' Party Li Lian, she told me that she's banking on her experience and also her personal touch to woo voters. But, you know, this time around, she's taking no chances. She says that she wants to cover 100% of households in Punggol East. Let's take a look.
She's no longer new to campaigning, having contested in the same seat in the last general election. Then Ms. Lee garnered about 41% of valid votes in a three-cornered fight. This time round, she's facing two other opposition candidates and the People's Action Party. But she's unfazed, counting on her experience working as a legislative assistant for Aljunied MP Pritam Singh and her work at the Aljunied Town Council.
I still believe in personal touch, face-to-face, because people who know me always say that I'm a people person. So I really hope that I can reach out to as many residents as I can so that they can also feel me.
She's got party leaders backing her up.
She's the ground person, a people person who can connect well to the ground. We know her for quite a long time. I'm sure she'll do her best.
Immediately after nominations closed, Ms. Lee headed to Rivervale Plaza. Upgrading works there stalled because the contractor went bust. With her husband by her side, she spent some time with shop owners and residents listening to their concerns.
Ms. Lee did not want to speculate on her chances this time round, only to say that she's focused on running her own campaign. What she did tell us, however, is that she will do more what she did during the last general elections, that is, reaching out to more voters. And this time, she's even planning to set up her own Facebook fan page.
Outside Rivervale Plaza, party volunteers got into full swing, putting up election banners and posters.
Now, Amanda, one of the highlights of elections is the political rallies,
That's right.
What are the parties saying about this?
Well, all the parties have confirmed that they will be holding rallies, but no dates have been firmed up yet. If you remember the last by-election in Hougang, the Workers' Party held 3 rallies, while the People's Action Party, they had 2 rallies. Now, the Singapore Democratic Alliance's Desmond Lim says he hopes to have at least one this Sunday. And in fact, he started campaigning with house-to-house visits today. Let's take a look.
With a door-to-door approach, Desmond Lim hopes to add a personal touch to campaigning. The Singapore Democratic Alliance Secretary-General says residents' response to his candidacy has been good. Despite 3 past election defeats, Mr. Lim says he will not give up, especially in this, his 4th election. His party has managed to gather a group of young supporters to do much of the legwork needed during campaigning.
I'm not fly-by-night politicians. So the fact that I can actually stay connected with the residents, the fact that I can form my own grassroots, which supported by a group of local residents here, which means that I don't say after elections disappear.
Mr. Lim is reviving plans from the 2011 general election, including the proposal to build new facilities of over $1 million through private sector funding. He also hopes to have a Sati club for residents managed by residents. He says he's disappointed the ward was left out in the government's plan to build more hawker centres. Mr. Lim also criticised the ruling party for speeding up infrastructure works in the ward because of the by-election.
Now, besides local issues, what are the messages do you think the parties will be talking about?
Well, the Reform Party's Kenneth Jeratnam, he says he wants to give Punggol East residents a better deal from the government. He's also said that his campaign message is no more broken promises. Let's take a look.
The Secretary-General of the Reform Party chose to speak to reporters at Rivervale Plaza to highlight the incomplete renovation works there. Facilities, public transport links and estate maintenance are the issues he will be highlighting. He said he has a 5-year plan for Punggol East, which he will announce in the coming week.
Not only will we be in touch with local issues through our network, and we will be fearless about bringing them up and working to resolve them, but our stance on national issues is well known. I have done more than the other opposition MPs to highlight the fact that we need accountability over our reserves.
At the nomination centre, only a handful of Reform Party supporters were spotted. When asked, Mr. Jeyaratnam said they are a new party with limited resources. He's hoping for more supporters at the rallies. On how his decision to contest the by-election has affected opposition unity, Mr. Jeyaratnam blamed the Workers' Party for refusing to engage other parties. However, he expects to attract voters who will not vote for the WP in any case. And he's confident of securing enough votes to ensure he gets his election deposit back.
Well, Jen, there you have it. The four political parties with their different campaign strategies. So a mix of local and also national issues. Eugene, how do you think campaigning will play out?
One is it's going to be a tight race with four parties. And so I think campaigning is going to be intense. Each party will certainly want to stick to what they think is the best approach to take. For the PAP, for example, they have said that this election is really about local issues. The Workers' Party have said that it's going to be a referendum of sorts on the PAP's performance since the May 2011 general elections. So I think we will see the campaigning parties being very determined to stick to their script. But I think what is really important is whether the parties can actually respond, to how the other parties campaign, for example, may be gaining traction with voters, and because it is important for them to be flexible, to be adaptable, because in the end, it's really, campaigning has to be about listening to the voters and then addressing their core concerns.
I mean, exactly, but what do you think is the message that will resonate with voters? I mean, besides party to party and even within the party?
Well, I think one is certainly voters will want to see what the candidate can do if elected, for the local community, right? So if there are long-standing issues, can they really get things going? What are their plans? But I think it is not enough, right? I think to just focus on local issues, voters will certainly expect, their representative in Parliament to be their voice, to talk about national issues that concern them. So the candidate that can actually connect with voters, at these two levels, will perhaps a message that can resonate with voters.
Any controversial issues you think, Eugene, that opposition parties will pounce on?
Well, I think one is certainly the whole town council issue, the PAP town council and the software. I think that is certainly one issue. But I think if we go back, for example, to the 2011 general elections, there are still many lingering issues. So concerns with cost of living remains persistent. Immigration is another cause of concern, and housing prices and transport woes. So these are some of the issues that will offer a lot of food for thought, because the parties will have to engage. But I think it's not just enough for them to criticize, but really to see what is it that they can do, to make a difference.
All right, Eugene, thanks, and thanks for joining us, Imelda. That was Assistant Professor Eugene Tan from the Singapore Management University.